What up? It's Mr. Roush, back in Language Arts, Day 3, identifying and analyzing themes. Annotating while reading continued. If you remember back, we started talking about theme a couple days ago. Then we looked at questioning and asking questions while we're reading. Today, we're going to combine the two and ask questions while we read so that we can better help identify theme. To review, theme is a common idea or message that is repeated through a literary work, and we use questioning as a technique to help us engage with the passage, and more specifically for today's purposes, to help us find, identify, and analyze theme. Today we will use questioning techniques to help identify theme in a literary passage so that we can determine themes of a text and analyze their development through citing textual evidence, paraphrasing, or summarizing. We will know that we've got it when we have completed the lesson activity by summarizing the passage and analyzing the theme of it. Quickly, let's take a look at one brief example. I'm going to be using my pen tool here to ask some questions while I'm reading. Remember, one characteristic of a good reader, we're reading with our pens or our mice in our hands while we read on the computer. So I'm looking for 4 or 5 who or why questions, just like we did yesterday or the last time we were in Language Arts, so that we can better identify theme. Follow along with me, please. Lewis shivered as he waited at the bus stop. So my first question is right here in the first sentence. Why is Lewis shivering? I assume it's because it's cold outside, but why does he have to wait for the bus? Stuff like that. It had been a really long day, and the last thing he wanted to do was ride a city bus full of strangers. So I don't necessarily have a specific who or why question, but I do just want to put a question mark here because I'm curious if he's had a bad experience on the bus in the past or why he's hesitant to ride the bus today. Let's keep going. His dad was going to try to pick him up, but he had to work late. Lewis had ridden the bus before, but it wasn't often, and he always hated it. So again, Lewis, or the narrator, is giving us more evidence that Lewis really does not want to get on this bus full of strangers. Let's see if we can get answers to our questions as we continue reading. He swiped his card and then waited as the people in front of him walked through. He found himself standing between a seat beside a woman reading a book and a seat beside an older man who just looked like he yelled at children. So I'm going to underline this. An older man who just looked like he wanted to yell at children. I'm just writing why here because I'm curious why he looks like he doesn't like children. Is it just because he's old? Or is there something else about him? So let's keep reading to see if we can find an answer. Lewis walked past the old man who had a very angry look on his face and took his seat beside the lady. So here we got the answer to our question. So I'm going to underline this and draw an arrow between that because that answered our question. Not did he look like he wanted to yell at kids, but he also had a really angry look on his face. She huffed as she moved away from him in the seat. Suddenly, the bus screeched to a stop, and Lewis's stuff tumbled to the ground in front of him. He scrambled to grab his papers while the lady laughed at him. Lewis was shocked as he watched the old man pick up the rest of his stuff and hand it back with a smile. So I'm underlining this last sentence here because I think that might be the most important part when we're thinking about theme. So based off the questions I asked, or the questions that appeared to me as I read, okay, we were curious about why the man looked old, but as we kept reading, why the man looked mean, but as we kept reading, we found out that the woman was actually the one that was mean, and that Lewis probably shouldn't have assumed that she was nice just because she was reading a book while the old man had a mean look on his face. So based off the questions we asked, I was able to come to the conclusion that the theme is not to judge a book by its cover. Lewis thought that the man was going to be old just because he thought he had an angry look on his face, but when Lewis really needed help, the old man was the first one to jump to his aid while the lady just laughed at him. So let's keep this in mind as we dive into Edmentum on our own today, and we have a passage to read for ourselves. How can we ask questions about the characters and the story itself to help us reach the conclusion we're looking for, and that is what is the theme of the story. So to conclude, on pages 22 through 26, you're being asked to do 3 things today in short answer form with the passage, A Retrieved Reformation. If you can remember back to days past, be sure to use the highlighter tool on your left-hand side, and you can also hit play somewhere in the right-hand corner so it'll read out loud to you. Okay, the 3 things we have to do today. 1, summarize the passage in your own words. Literally just tell me what happened in the story. It's going to ask for 75 to 100 words. I think 50 could probably get it done, but the more the merrier. Number 2, make inferences about the characters. For example, in our story today, Lewis inferred that the old man was going to be mean just because he had an angry look on his face. What can you infer about the characters you're going to read about based off the evidence in the passage? And lastly, third, the most important thing we'll do today, explain how the theme of people can change for the better relates to the story. So before you even read the passage today, I'm telling you that the theme is people can change for the better. Your job is to read the passage and find evidence to explain how I came to that conclusion that this is the theme. Be sure and cite your evidence in your writing prompt, and please feel free to virtually raise your hand, and we will get to you as soon as we can.